In this important session, we will be looking at food in the wilderness. How can we live in the wilderness or live in the country and be able to take advantage of what the Creator has put in nature to feed us? And we're looking here at 29 plants, wild food, and this book has 100 page and 1 pages. So as we look at it, what we have discovered that was very, very important was the fact that the creator is definitely knowledgeable of his creation. And what is the most important lesson to learn from this reading? And here we have aloe vera for the people who know this plant. It's another beautiful plant, not only for healing purposes, but also for food. And as we look now at all of these wonderful wild food sources, we will not look at them and read them all as far as their beauty and their value. But we encourage you to read this book and really take it seriously as it has major, major information, but particularly the introduction, as we're going to look at this now and look at a few of those wonderful plants in the forest, which we would have never thought that could be able to feed us, and what is important about knowing this, as well as some natural health remedy, along with the next session, which will go into more depth into the natural remedies. Now, we would like to take time to definitely read this introduction as it's quite amazing. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you are forced to forage for wild foods and or herbal medicines, then the following chapters contain knowledge that may very well save your life. In fact, they describe 29 essential plants that you definitely need to know about and answers for each plant the 5 questions. What is it good for? Where do I find it? How do I identify it? How do I prepare it? Can I cultivate it in my garden? Also, each of the 29 plants described in the following chapters were chosen specifically because they provide either essential forms of energy that serves as fuel for the human body, essentials, vitamins, and minerals that prevent certain debilitating conditions such as beriberi and scurvy, and serve to replace essential health remedies that will normally keep you in your medicine. You would keep that in your medicine cabinet, such as aspirin, antacid, and cough suppressant. Consequently, you may notice that the following book is divided into 3 separate sections that describe wild food sources, natural sources of vitamins and minerals, and plant that serves a natural form of medicine. Furthermore, you may also notice that the wild food sources section is further categorized by dividing the plants into leafy vegetables, roots, tubers, bulbs, fruits, berries, nuts, and seeds. And this is what's so amazing. If I was to read only one sentence in that whole paragraph here, this is what I would read. Each of which provides essential vitamins, mineral, fat, proteins, and or carbohydrate. And as a lifestyle educator, we know that we are to teach the nutrient from the food, what we need for nutrient to remain healthy. And these are actually, including water, these are actually the 5 nutrients of the body, which the Creator in His wisdom has put in plants and what we call weeds in the field, but they're not weeds. Vitamin, minerals, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. And if you have water, you have your 5. With water is 6 nutrients that you need to remain healthy. So the natural sources of vitamins and minerals section specifically lists 3 easy to find and identify plants that provide essential vitamins and minerals that the human body absolutely must have in sufficient quantities to function properly. And the natural health remedy section specifically lists 10 common plant species that alleviate common ailments such as cough and upset stomach, as well as replacing antiseptic and antibiotic ointments. Very, very beautiful book to read and to have at hand. And you can print these books. Before the invention of farming, somewhere around 800 BCE, men lived in small nomadic groups known as hunters gatherers because they live entirely on what they were able to forage from the land. Therefore, their very survival depended on an intimate knowledge of the land and the seasons, as well as the plants and animals that they were available for them. Consequently, if you know where to look and what to look for, nature has provided us, or the Creator has provided us with a veritable bounty of edible plant species that can provide us with all of the nutrition we need to remain healthy. In fact, in a survival situation, the need to find and consume food goes far beyond the need to satisfy your hunger. Therefore, simply finding enough food is only half of the survival equation, because you also need to ingest a balanced diet to remain healthy. And most people do not think like that. They think if they can eat anything as long as it's food, but you need to remain healthy, so you need your 6 nutrients, including water. This, of course, requires that in addition to consuming enough food, you also consume the correct types of food so that your body not only has enough calories or fuel to continue functioning and to generate heat, you also gain the nutrition your body needs to remain healthy. So calories is not a nutrient, it's actually the byproduct or the by effect of having eaten the proper nutrients. And this, fortunately, humans have evolved as omnivores, meaning that we can digest both plant and animal flesh. I'm not sure about the evolution of this. It was because of disobedience again. And thus, we can beneficially ingest almost any species in the plant or animal kingdoms, except those mentioned in Leviticus chapter 11, which are unclean. However, man does not live by bread alone, as the old saying goes, and thus, specifically when we find ourselves in a survival situation, it is of paramount importance that we consume a variety of foods that provide us with fats, proteins, carbohydrates, as well as essential vitamins and minerals if we are to remain healthy. So notice how many times this should be underlined or bold. This is so important to repeat those. Fat, protein, carbohydrate, vitamins, and minerals are the nutrients for the body, in addition of water. Thus, you should also keep in mind the fact that the average person resting in a complete relaxed state requires 70 calories per hour just to maintain their basic and voluntary bodily functions such as breathing and blood circulation. That's why they're involuntary. You have nothing to do to force that to be done in your body. And adding even simple activities such as standing up, sitting down, or walking short distances require actually another 45 calories per hour. Therefore, without doing any sort of work whatsoever, the average human burns over 2,000 calories per day, and adding even mild physical exertion can boost its requirement to upward to 3,500 calories per day. Consequently, if you find yourself in a survival situation, it is of paramount importance that you keep calm, relax as much as possible, and conserve energy if food is scarce. Thus, plan your foraging mission accordingly. Energy needs. The average human requires a minimum caloric intake of 2,000 calories per day. This is a nutrition class in matters of eating herbs in the field. Fats, 1 gram will produce 9 calories. Protein, 1 gram would produce 4 calories. And carbohydrate produces 4 calories. So altogether, you have already 17 here. Nuts and seed, excellent source of fats and proteins. Fruits and berries, excellent source of sugars or carbohydrates. Roots, tuber, and bulbs, excellent source of sugar and starches, carbohydrates. And leafy vegetable, you get your essential vitamins and minerals from them. Fats. And then again, there is another study here that you could do on your own. Many information that we will not necessarily take the time to all read, but for those of you who are interested in adding to your knowledge, those are very well prepared information. Fats are molecules that are made by combining carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms, and like carbohydrates or sugar, they are a concentrated source of energy. However, it should be noted that fats provide twice the energy of carbohydrates, and thus they are extremely important source of energy. Also, fats store vitamins and minerals, and thus they are imperative to a balanced hunter-gatherer diet. In addition, fats serve to heat and insulate the human body, protects organs, lubricate the alimentary tract, and build an energy reserve, and they are found in animals, fish, eggs, milk, nuts, and some vegetables and fungi or fungi. However, fats are also insoluble in water, and thus they require a lengthy digestive process with an adequate intake of water before they can be absorbed by the human body. And you know that if you try to eat, especially nuts takes much longer to digest than beans, for example, and must be masticated very well in order to be absorbed. Proteins. Proteins are highly complex molecules made up of chemical structures known as amino acids combined in thousands of different ways, and the human body uses proteins to generate new muscle tissues, heal abrasions and wounds, and repair other physical damage. Also, the main source of proteins are meat, fish, eggs, milk, nuts again, and fungi. However, it should be noted that while meat contains all of the amino acids the human body needs to remain healthy, in order to remain healthy, plants do not unless a sufficient range is eaten. Well, we kind of agree to disagree here because you have to know, of course, the protein you need in your body. And you actually need only the size of the inside of your hand, not counting the fingers. If you have that quantity flat in your hand, like nuts, for example, a hand flat of nuts, that's sufficient for the day of what you need for protein. Also, in the event that carbohydrates are missing from the diet, which are the sugar, protein is used by the human body to generate energy. But it should be noted that this is done at the expense of other bodily needs and that it will cause the body to start consuming its own stored fat. So if you're a bit in a trouble with in the wilderness, you might lose weight. For some people, it might be advantageous, but for others, if they have just the proper amount of fat on their body, it could become a problem. Carbohydrates are molecules synthesized by plants by combining carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms, and thus they are easily converted into energy by the human body, which are sugar, and they do not require a large intake of water to digest. Also, carbohydrates are the main source of energy for the human body, and thus they serve to supply the fuel needed for running the nervous system. So, carbohydrates are necessary for your brain, maintaining internal functions, producing heat, and performing physical exertion. In addition, consuming carbohydrates prevents a condition known as ketosis, which consists of indigestion, nausea, and vomiting caused by the excessive breakdown of body fats during starvation. Furthermore, it should be noted that there are two different types of carbohydrate, which consist of sugars that are found in fruits and certain plants like sugarcane, and starches that are found in grains, roots, tubers, and bulbs. However, it should also be noted that carbohydrates lack vitamin B and that overconsumption may cause constipation. Note that starch granules are insoluble in cold water, but heat causes them to rupture, and this is why roots, tubers, and bulbs are always cooked before consumption as a food source. And we're thinking potato, for example. You should never eat raw potatoes in order to absorb the starch or the carbohydrate that comes from them. So now as we look, and we will not take time to look at every one of their capacities, what do those plants do, but look at the leaves in particular, because that's how you can, in particular, as you can recognize them in the forest. This is a leafy vegetable. It's called from the family of the dock plant. This one is the curly dock. And this is actually found in North America, so you can definitely find it in Canada. I've seen it in the forest. And as you look, it stands very low on the ground, and it's kind of around some grassy area here, or you could call hay. And so this is a green leafy flowering weed, and we can find it in Canada, definitely in America, United States. And it is high in vitamins and minerals, A, E, C, K, iron, magnesium, manganese, calcium, folic acid, carotenoids, and omega-3 fatty acids. So this is where you have in addition that will keep your digestive system working properly, and you don't need to cook those. You can prepare them into a kind of a lettuce salad, and you can eat them like this. Some people might be fussy because they don't have their special mayonnaise, but listen, when you have to eat, you have to eat, so you cannot be too fussy. And this we have again, it tells you how to identify it, what it looks like, and the parts that are eatable of it. And it says here that in addition, as the plant matures, it produces a long, slim, cone-shaped flowering stalk upon which green flowers bloom. So you can see them blooming here, and then this is when they are basically ripen, you could say. And this you can eat. All of this plant you can eat. They say here that it has a extremely bitter. Their taste range from highly palatable to extremely bitter, with a slightly lemon taste. So it depends on the species, I suppose. And they tell you here how it can be prepared in a salad as a green vegetable, similar to lettuce, or you can steam it or stew it and eat it as a green, similar to spinach or mustard. So depending on the flavor of the plant too, they can actually be harvested, and they say that it's depending as well of the area where you get them, they might be a different taste. So this is definitely something important to look into, and get ready to recognize them in the forest, so you will know how to which plants to use. All right, so definitely it's important to know how to use those plants, how to store them. Lots of beautiful information for a small book, only 101 pages, but it has very much of information. You can even grow them in your garden. So those duck plant, they're wild, but you can actually grow them as a regular plant in your garden if you choose to. All right, so this is definitely a first for the plants, and of course, as we said, we invite you to read it for yourself because it's a lot of information we might be missing, and you might take advantage of it by studying them yourself. All right, now we're going to look at another plant, amaranth, another leafy vegetable, which is easily recognizable as well. And it has, they call it a weed, but we prefer to call it a plant. And here it is. We may want to increase it and see if we can see the plant better. Here we go. And I'm sure you have seen this plant. I have myself personally seen it many times. And these do not grow like a bush. They're just a little plant on the ground, which people call weeds. And this is an amaranth. Again, another leafy flowering weed that is abundant in North America. And again, it's high in vitamins, minerals, magnesium, iron, manganese, calcium, folic acid. And it's interesting because when you see magnesium and calcium, it usually comes with folic acids. And the reason is because magnesium and calcium can only be absorbed by the human body in the presence of folic acid. Very interesting and very magnificent how the Creator knows all these, because He created them and He provides them through weeds in the field. So there is no reason for us to starve, especially in the summer. And those can be stored as well. And this is producing fibers. It's high in fiber, which help to keep amaranth, to keep your digestive system working properly. And they also have antioxidants. And those antioxidants will prevent cell damage and cell mutations, especially in the case of cancer. So where you can find it through North America, you can usually see them in open, sunny areas, moist cultivated, or disturbed soil, such as pasture, where the animals are, fallow field edges, and fence rows. I have seen those definitely from in Canada, from the east to the west. This plant grows very well. And again, for a matter of time, we're going to have to pass through, but it says here it can grow up to 8 feet. And so when you look at it when it's small, it's maybe not easy to recognize on the ground, but once it grows and it produces a flower as well, then you can see that it's definitely a plant that is for food, and it can be used for, as we said, for your minerals and your vitamins, and it's very important. So you can eat here the leaves, the stem, and also the when you prepare it as a salad, and you can boil it just like spinach or mustard, and you can dry it as well, the dry seed, which they can be used as a grain by many indigenous people. So we have to learn about that too. And this has to be done at the late summer, early fall, and then you have those seeds that you will be able to dry completely, and then you can prepare them exactly like a grain actually. All right, so this is a beautiful plants that we need to learn about, and how it should be stored again without modern refrigeration. They say here they cannot be preserved for a long period without modern refrigeration unless they are canned. So you need to know how to do that as well. All right, so very easy to find those beautiful plants. You see them in the summer. They're easier to recognize sometime towards the month of August, at the end of the summer. The reason is because by then they have flowers, and people recognize them easier. Now another one is wild lettuce, which looks a bit like what we look at, but the leaves are more with dent into them than the first lettuce that we look at. And again, this is same with vitamins, minerals, pretty well the same with omega-3 fatty acids, everything you need for your body. Again, with antioxidant, and it's to help your digestive system working properly. Again, we have seen them in North America, everywhere, in Canada, United States, and pretty well the same as amaranth. They can be found in the edges of the wood and in shaded fallow fields. Fallow means they are not necessarily cultivated. So this wild lettuce is a biennial that grows to a height approximately of 3 feet, and it can actually be used with the leaves and the stem. And again, you can use it in the salad, or you can again steam it if you can. And it produces a flower. They say that it's very similar to the dandelion plant, and these are edible as well. So again, very similar to dandelion, but it's not the same exact one. All right, so you can read again how it should be stored, and if you can grow it in your garden. It says here, yes, you can. So definitely it's nice to be able to preserve the seeds and reproduce it. And when people call that weed, they do not know that the weed themselves that have definitely some problem like poison ivy, those were not put there by God. An enemy planted them, but the right plants to eat and available in the field are definitely nothing to be fearful about, and eat them. Another one is trout lily, which produce a bulb, so you will be able then to again eat this as a green leafy flowering vine, and again found in North America. And the bulbs are high in both sugars or starch, so the bulbs is in the ground, and that can be converted by the human body into carbohydrates, which is the sugar. Can be found in United States and Canada, and the Rocky Mountain, the Pacific State, and I've seen them in the east as well of Canada. And so those you can find them in hardwood forest and woodland of higher elevation and alpine meadows. So where there is mountains, you can find this wonderful plant. And the trout lily is a spring ephemeral, meaning that it usually gone by midsummer. So you can find it in the early spring. And this is when you're going to be able to feed yourself right away. As soon as you need something to eat, that as especially if you're in a country where there is snow. So here we have the bulb are teardrop shaped and are about the size of a human fingernail, so which is not very big. And they look like a little wild onion with a brownish coloring on the outside. You can see it here, actually, the picture. And this you can eat. This is a picture of the bulb, which definitely looks like an onion. And so this is eatable, and it's white. Again, it tells you how to prepare it. The Indian were using them, the leaves, to prevent conception, and consumption of the leaves may be responsible for miscarriage in pregnant mothers. So it's not recommended for you to eat it if you're pregnant. But then again, it was to prevent conception. So they didn't need to have any pills. They knew what to use in nature if their wife didn't want too many babies. And the Iroquois Indians, this is one of the tribes that used to live on these territories of Canada. The bulbs are a rare delicacy in the vegetable world. People who try them for the first time often comment that it's the best tasting vegetable they have ever eaten. Isn't that interesting? And it's right in the wilderness and nobody cares about them. And again, this is, you have to harvest them in the early spring when they're tender, sweet, and crunchy because of the large quantity of sugar that they contain. By the fall, they will be harder, starchy tasting instead of being sweet because now the plant has converted the sugar to starches. They are usually eaten raw if harvested in the spring and either steamed, boiled, or sauteed in butter if harvested in the fall. Okay, so these are information you may want to take heed if you are able to find those, and you can eat them because they are good for you. And again, it tells you here you can preserve them, but again, it has to be in a bucket in a cool, dark, dry place, a bit like an onion. All right, and they can be cultivated in the garden and in flower beds. Very interesting. And they even tell you how far apart they have to be planted in your garden. So these are instructions that we need at this time. And of course, there are many pages to look at. So we're going to go a little bit faster here. Jerusalem artichoke is another beautiful plant, and it's a tuber. Again, you will find the root is a bit like what we just saw there. And again, Jerusalem artichokes is called like this. It's a wild vegetable, and it's a greeny leaf, flowering weed, and we can find it in Canada and United States. And again, high in starches, sugar, which the human body converts to carbohydrate. And it has also thiamine, iron, phosphorus, and potassium. So it's very important to know those things, which are important to recognize. And again, it says here from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico, you can find these plants. All right, so we're going to pass by this. And again, how to identify it. It's the same family as the sunflower. And so they grow very tall, green, leafy, with a single straight, round, unbranched, except occasionally near the top stalk, usually measuring 1.5 inch to 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And it has a short, stiff, raspy hair, which remains after the plant dies in the fall. All right, so you want to check all those. It's very important to do it before you need them. So next time you go to the forest, make a copy of these if you want to just take the picture and take the page with the picture and bring them with you and try to recognize them. Or there are books you can buy also of plants, and they are with colors. They're divided by colors. So you can easily, if you don't know any of these plants, and if the plant has a yellow flower, well, you're going to look in the yellow section and you will find that plants in the yellow section. Same with the pink or the blue, whatever colors they are. There are some plants that are blue. Actually, asters have blue colors. Again, here it is with the bulb that they call it. It's much bigger than the other plants we just saw. And this is the Jerusalem artichoke. And so you can dig it at any time of the year, but they are not usually fully ripe until late fall, winter, or early spring. So harvested at any other time of the year, they will be hard, bitter, and full of indigestible starch inulin. So you have to pay attention when to harvest them, late fall, winter, or early spring. So not in the summer. All right. And they say they can create extreme flatulence when ingested before the advent of cold weather. So because they have too much of they cause them to convert their starches to sample sugars. So you want to know this as well. All right, you need charcoal then. Wild tubers are best eaten fresh, but they can be stored for a short period in a dark, cool, dry place, such as a root cellar. And they will definitely wither like all bulb do, like carrots and parsnip. Therefore, to prevent dehydration, it is wise to place them in a bucket of moist, not wet, or a bucket of sand, and then place the bucket in a cool, dark, dry place. All right, and yes, you can grow them in your garden in flower beds. Very, very interesting that these plants are wild and can adapt, and you can grow them as well. So if you have them in your garden, you can eat them as well. So very, very important to know those important plants. All right, we're going to pass on to the next one, which is upness. And upness is also, you can recognize it with the flower. And then it's also a tuber. So another starch sugar plant, and it's a leafy plant as well, which can be used in North America, which can be used again for its starch, and which converts to carbohydrates. And you can find it naturally, of course, in Canada, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. So this is definitely a plant to recognize, and it grows in the summer. You can see upness in the summer, especially where there's a lot of place where the water is. So you can see them as vines that wrap around shrubs, small trees, and larger vines, and low vegetation as well. And they can go up to 10 to 20 feet each season, dying back in the fall. But they will come back because they have a bulb in the ground and they will come back. So we encourage you to recognize them, and here are the bulbs that you will be looking for, the leaves you are looking for, and the flower that it produces. All right, so this looks like potatoes, doesn't it? When you look at this particular picture, it really looked like a potato. All right, especially red potatoes. Again, you can dig the bulb, the tubers, and it says here, it should be noted that while sometimes the tuber will be right on the ground surface, they are most often buried 1 to 4 inches deep, sometimes up to 8 inches deep. All right, so you can recognize them, you can clean them up, and you can have something to eat here, and you're not going to starve. So again, those are, you can actually steam them or boil them, and that's how you can eat them. They can be preserved as well in dark, cool, dry places, and you can grow them in your garden as well. So upness is a very, very important plant, again, to provide the minerals and the vitamins we need and the sugar. So very, very important. All right, so the next plant after upness and Jerusalem artichokes and all these plants we've seen so far is the maypop. Maypop, again, another beautiful plant in the field that you can recognize, and it produces a fruit. And many people do not know those plants, and they will pass them by and be starving. Again, they can be found in North America, and they say more in the south, but hopefully we can see them here in Canada too. And maypop is more in the south, around Missouri to Texas, and the Atlantic coastal states. Also, maypops, there is they like fences. That's where you will find them, And in rural roads, better than highways because it's going to be full of pollution there with the car passing by. You don't want any plants that comes from by the highways. And if you buy the highways, you're not going to be in trouble, so don't eat those plants. Go to the if you're in the forest, then you have a better plant to eat. Again, these are plants that can be eaten, so you have to know how to prepare them. All right, so you can read for yourself here how you can prepare them and how they produce a wonderful fruit right here that says here that it's eatable. So how do you prepare those? The fruit in particular is eatable as soon as it appears in the spring, and they can be harvested in the late fall also after the pod has turned yellow and become wrinkled. And then you will be able to prepare them and hopefully even look at that. They say you can drink them as a juice and you can drink them then as a beverage. So it's very important to appreciate that. Although I wouldn't know how to make a juice in the forest if I don't have a blender, but that's just me. Some of you might know. All right, so we're going to go on now. You can grow them in the garden as well. So that's another excellent things to know. And you can have them all the summer long if you can have them. So again, we're going to pass to another important plants. There are other plants too that we want to arrive at. So we're going to have to go a little bit faster. This is the May apple fruit. Looks like a little umbrella here. Beautiful plants in the forest, and it covers the field there, as you can see. Lots of green leafy flowering weeds that is abundant here in North America, especially in the eastern. And we can find them in Canada, all the way to Texas. And so this is definitely a plant that you want to know. And it grows around the oak trees, hickory trees, or ash. And those are hardwood. And you can also find them in the edge of the forest where there are pastures for the animals and along the road and the banks, the meaning the water bank. All right. And again here, it's a flowering perennial plant. It's not very big. It grows up to 12 inches to 24 inches. And you see here that it produces a single leaf or branch once and produce two leaves after that. And also the leaves of the May apple are large, shiny, light green. And of course, they're going to be eatable. You can prepare them again for food and for nutrient. Very, very important to study all this. All right. So here is the flower, the leaves, and the fruit that it produces. And how to prepare it. They say here that the fruit of this plant is the only edible part. All the other parts of these plants are considered highly toxic and should not be consumed. So you cannot eat the leaves of that plant. All right, so notice that May plant. So the May apple plants. And however, the ripe fruit of this plant is considered to be perfectly safe to ingest. And unripe May apples will be green and feel hard to the touch, but as the fruit ripens, it grows softer and then it has a pleasant aroma. So don't forget, this May apples is only for the fruits. You don't touch the leaves or the stem, and you can consume it for a juice here. All right, so you can, they say it's better to eat them when they're fresh, but they can still be preserved if they're set out to dry in the sun. And you can grow them as well in your garden. All right, so it tells you what pH the soil needs to be for them to grow. So we're going to go now to the prickly pear, and we're running a bit out of time, so we're just going to go quickly. This is a cactus for those of you who live in cactus area, and cactus are very good for you. They have a lot of carbohydrate and they produce a lot of liquid, lots of water. And so we're going to go quickly here for lack of time, but please take time to read those, especially if you recognize the plants from where you come from. And these are the lovely flower and fruits that it's produced. And it says here, the pads, flowers, and fruit on this plant can be eaten, but the fruit is the most commonly consumed part. All right. So we're going to continue with this exploration, going from one to the other, prickly pear. And they tell you here again how to store it, that you can grow it in your garden, and how to prepare it in the soil. Autumn olive. This one I am very familiar with. These trees have about the same color as sage, kind of a grayish color. And of course, when it just grows, it's green and it creates a flower. And it's abundant in US and Canada. I've seen it and it's very easy to recognize. And it's high in sugar. Now, also, they say here that 17 times higher in lycopene than the typical raw tomato. And this is very important nutrient. And 80% of the US intake of this nutrient comes from tomato and tomato products, but this is a plant that produces it, and also high in level of vitamins A, C, and E, and as well as flavonoids and essential fatty acids. So this plant is really amazing. And you can it's quite the most quite likely the most abundant edible wild fruit in this region where you can find it, and it's also available in Canada. Definitely we see it in Canada. All right, so we're going to pass by again all these wonderful instruction, and we encourage you to read them for yourself, as we are definitely wanting to go to an important part of that study. And here are the wonderful fruits that it's producing after it has gone to flowers. And the leaves, you can see how they turn. They're very green, but in this case here, they have around the flower time, they have turned a bit grayish. That's what's interesting about this plant. It tells you how to prepare it, and it says the berries can be eaten raw immediately after harvest, or they can be pressed and the juice collected for consumption as a beverage. All right, so you can also dry them up and be able to preserve them that way. All right, so as we continue our research, you can grow them in the garden as well. So there you go. Probably need a lot of water too if it grows to be a tree. And we have now common pawpaw, which is a fruit, again, that is produced here with those kind of leaves. This, I am not familiar with that plant. It grows in North America, and the fruit is eatable, and it's produced a lot of sugar, which is good, converts into carbohydrate, which creates your quick, full fuel source. All right. So here it's, they say here it comes into the sort North Ontario, Canada from New York West. So we could have them around. I've never really identified them myself, but it's definitely a tree that produces some fruits and they are eatable. All right, so we're going to continue now to our next step, and this is the fruit that it produces. Almost look like a mango to me. Beautiful plant, beautiful products. So this is in Canada, United States as well. All right, so you can press it as a juice. You can eat it like that as well. And it's better when it's ripened, of course. And you can also store it, and they tell you how to do that. And it can grow into your garden. So every plant that you see it so far, they have been practically able to grow into a regular garden. All right, it's good to know there are fruits out there. We don't have to starve to death like some people do. Another important plant is acorns nut. And this is not something people know, but the oak tree produces an acorn that you can eat. And if you catch it before the squirrel. All right. And that definitely it's here in Canada. And the southern Canada, they say, to northern Mexico. The oak tree, which is also used for furniture and for flooring, produce an acorn. And there are 90 species of oak tree growing in North America. And that acorn is edible. You can eat it. And it will tell you here that if you see it in the late summer, early fall, the nuts are all green in color with a distinct brown cap. Very pretty. And as I said, the squirrel will be at it before you if you don't do nothing. And you're going to recognize them now, especially The leaf of the oak is very special and very easy to recognize, and this is the acorn that it produced, and it almost looked like a little hat. So this is the acorn, but these are green. They will change to brown by the time it's ready to use. It says here they can be eaten fresh from the tree, but they are bitter due to the tannin contained in the nut. Therefore, the preferred method of consuming acorn is to make flour out of them and then leak the tannin by soaking flour in water. All right, or leach it. Also, when collecting acorn, it's important to note the presence or absence of acorn wheatvilles. So the adult members of this family of wheatvilles use its long snout to bore a hole in the acorn into which it deposits eggs. And when the larvae hatch, they immediately proceed to consume the acorn seed. Aha. So there could be some little visitor in there, and you can recognize it because they make a hole in the shell. And that's why you don't want to have that. You're not going to eat those. All right. And they say here that some of them feed exclusively on acorn, other attack chestnut, hazelnuts, and the other species. So, but they also make excellent fish bait if you fish. All right, so let's continue with the beautiful acorn here, and you know too that you can all study these effect of the weevil on them, so to be able to recognize if they have been affected by them. And this is a bit like bad weeds, right? So here we have more instruction regarding the acorn and how you are to prepare them. All right, so we're going to bypass all this, but it's very interesting how they have so much information in this little book for you to learn what to eat in the forest, and so you don't have to starve. All right, but pray that your flight may not be in the winter, because those are not available in the winter. Usually they're more spring to fall. So they can be stored, of course. You have to store them in the shelf, or you can remove their shell, and they can dry in the sun, and then you keep them in a dark, cool, dry place. And you can grow oak trees in your garden. And they take a lot of room to be prepared for that. They're big trees. Look at that. They're going to consume more than 50 gallons of water per day, when you might as well leave them in the forest and go and pick your acorn in the fall. All right. It's definitely a big tree. I love oak tree. They're very nice, but they need a lot of space and a lot of water, as it says here. All right. The other one that is very important is the black walnuts. And most people do not know that these are also nuts, which are full of proteins and fat for you. Again, this tree grows in the United States. I am not sure if I have seen the walnuts, the black walnuts here, but I definitely have seen the oak tree producing these nuts, which we have entered now. So this is another important learning, the black walnuts. If you happen to be in an area where there are some, these are edible. And here they are, and they produce a leaf like this, and that's their fruits. And inside there is the nuts. All right, so it tells you again how to prepare it, how you can store it, and how you can grow it in your garden. And as we mentioned earlier, like the oak tree, it needs a lot of water. So white walnut is also another tree that you can, from the butternut tree. So again, the same as the other nuts, full of protein, good for you if you can find some, because you need your protein, not just your vitamins and your minerals. And then again, the fruit is similar and the leaves are similar to the other butternut. And so the method of preparation, the method of storage, all this is similar when you're talking about those nuts. All right, and you can grow those big trees in your garden if you have the space, and they require a lot of water. So you may want to think about it before you. This one I'm very familiar with, the hazelnuts. We have eaten a lot of those as children. They grow wild in the forest. They grow into a kind of a bush like this. And they have a very particular leaf. You can recognize it. I do, because of the leaves myself. And here they say it grows in the northern of US, but we have definitely have them in Canada. And the one that we we had is, as they will show a picture in a minute of how to recognize them. It's a very pricky cover. You have to be careful about not having your finger on it directly. You need gloves to take them out from the tree. And you have to do it before the squirrel gets to it. And here is the leaves, the very particular small leaves. And this is the nuts. Contrary to the oak nut tree or other nuts, this is the nuts. It has actually a shell, but it's inside this particular cover, which is very interesting, and it's attached to the tree this way. And this is very pricky. If you were to touch it with your hands, you would get all kind of little needles in your fingers. All right, it's serious. It does prick. And the way you take it out, this is green still, but in the fall when it's ready to harvest, you take it by the stem here. Don't take it over here. And take it by the stem and you pull it from the branch and it will come out easily. And get your bag ready because you're going to be able to harvest a lot. When a hazelnut tree it produces a lot. Although some trees, they will produce only every second year. They don't produce every year. And you have to be familiar with the tree, recognizing and this is the flower. But once you have recognized the tree, and if there are hazelnut, you also have to look because they're hiding under the leaves. They're not visible. So you have to be familiar with that hazelnut. And when people are not familiar, they wonder what on earth you are harvesting when you come with your bag and harvest them. So you can roast them in their shell and you can eat them up. And usually you have the best is to let them, after the harvest, you have to let them dry. And then the shell will be easier to remove. I mean, the pricky part. And they say here you can grow them in your garden. I don't know about that. I have always seen them in the wild, so I don't think I would try to do that in my garden. They grow like a big bush, like you saw. They're not very tall, but they're still definitely a big bush. And then it says here something interesting. It should be noted that some hazelnut shrubs produce only male flowers, whereas other hazelnut shrubs produce only female flowers. Therefore, both male and female plants are required for pollination and subsequent nut production. So maybe that's why they don't always produce every year. I don't know. They're not pollinated by the male and the female. All right, so this was my preferred hazelnut, which I know very well, can be used for a lot of reasons. And this is the American lotus. So we're going to go a little bit faster here for sake of time. American lotus, you can find them in Canada too. I've seen them in Canada. And this is a perennial flower, meaning it's coming back, and it's similar to the water lily, but there are significant difference. Their leaves are dark green and round in shape, and the leaf of the American lotus can reach up to 3 feet in diameter. It's really big, and they can float on the surface of the water when the plant grows in deep water and rise anywhere from a few inches to 6 feet above the surface when they are in a mud flats. They're beautiful. I love them. I'm familiar with the water lily. This one is called American lotus lily. All right, so what is eatable here? We can see that when you have those flowers and those plants, you need to know what you're doing. This is the plant with the leaves, beautiful leaves, and the tree and the flowers, I should say, and the fruits that it produces. All right, so what is that we can eat from them? The seeds of the American lotus are the most commonly consumed part, and they produce tuber as well. And like other nut, the seeds of this plant does not ripen until late summer. And the plant's tubers are best when harvested during this period. All right, so you don't want to harvest them when they just start growing because they're not necessarily. So they do produce a nut, and as you saw, and so you can actually strike them with a baton or a hammer, but do not smash them, and because then they're going to be all, you won't have anything left. All right, so basically it's a very important study because you can boil them, eat them raw, roast them, you can store them, you can grow them in your garden. You need a lot of moisture, and you can eat them as well. So this is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So if you know a special area in the forest where they are, maybe you should just go and get it there rather than try to grow them. So here is the section now that they tell you for natural source of vitamins or minerals. Again, we went over that, and this is to prevent beriberi, pellagra, scurvy, and rickets, which are all diseases that are lacking because you're lacking minerals, and you need your vitamins, and you need your also your protein and all the essential nutrient of the body: vitamins, mineral, carbohydrate, oil, which is fat, and protein, and then water. So this is basically the presentation that you need to know about all your nutrients. And this is actually a very, very good book on nutrition and nutrients, even if it's coming from those exterior, like those plants in the forest. They're not necessarily cultivated in your garden. Some can, but it's amazing what you can do with them. Juicing, poultices, when you have splitting agent, infusion, decoction, you can knead them. You can use them for many purposes. And even the leaves or the flowers and the root and the bulb, amazing. And here it says you can express the juice to treat abrasion, cuts, rashes. You can use them for poultice. You can use them as an infusion for drinking, like a tea. Texture, very, very potent. And that salve, this is like an ointment for bruises and rashes and all that. And you can create a natural remedy with them. You can also dry them, powder them, and get all what you can from them as far as being able to um, be healed. Those are healing, that healing power, beside also being nutrients for you to eat. So here are other beautiful plants in nature or trees in nature that you can use specifically for vitamin A and C. Here is the white pine, which I really love, and I use it for as a tea for lungs problem. But you also can make it out of the leaves, which supplies A and C. So they're not leaves, they are pine needles, but they call them leaves here. All right, so these are pine trees. Those are called evergreen. They're not those who lose their leaves in the fall. All right, so the long leaf evergreen tree that grows to a height of 150 feet. Can you imagine? So those are the needle. They call them leaves, but they're needles. All right, and look at the way when you look at the tree, you can recognize them just by the trunk, the way the trunk is, and they're not always the same look. The pine tree are very particular. They have like scale instead of long grooves, and I have used white pine's needles for healing, and it's excellent. The same as when you look at the spruce and you look at the fir tree, they all have their value. Dandelion. Many people really detest dandelion, and I love when they grow in the spring because they make a beautiful yellow garden, and people don't like it. They want to get rid of them and kill them. They're full of vitamin A, C, D. Look what it says here. We pass it a little bit. Let me go back for a second. Vitamin A, C, D, B complex. So those are full of vitamins, and you can make a drink with it from the flower or the leaves, and you can eat them as a salad. And they grow very well in North America. And as I said, people kill them all the time every spring, and they're a plant. So they rather like to have grass with nothing than having those wonderful, and you can see they look like the lettuce we saw earlier, and the flower is a bit different, but it's the same family. All right. So this is what you can do with it. Can you grow it in your garden? Absolutely. They'll come back every year and cover your garden. So these can be plants that people have never considered, that you don't have to starve to death to be in the forest if you have those. Evening primrose, mineral, potassium, magnesium, and iron. And this is a beautiful plant. This is actually very good for menopause and flashes and all with the problem people have. They make it in oil, and you can actually use that oil. You can drink it, and as we see here, it has minerals in them that are very, very good. And it can be eaten as a staple food. The North American culture have consumed them, the native, as staple food. In fact, the leaves can be eaten fresh, steamed, boiled, or green, again, as a leafy vegetable. And you can also eat the tuber. All right, so this is definitely wonderful instruction. Gives you now an opportunity to go to the forest, and this is the wonderful flower, beautiful with the leaves. You can see here, looks a little bit like plantain, but smaller. All right, so this is evening primrose, and it definitely grows in Canada and United States. All right, so we're gonna continue here. We're gonna go quicker to finish on time, but it's a beautiful, beautiful book. Natural Health Remedies. This will be followed by another book, two more books on natural remedies. So we invite you to read it for yourself and see how much instruction you can get. You don't need a big, big books of 300 pages to learn this. And you may want to learn every vitamins and minerals that it contains, but the main things is if you can recognize the plant, that will give you the survival, not so much if you know all their content. All right, some people, you take them to the forest and they don't even have a clue what you can eat. Look at that. This is for juice, poultice, infusion. Again, make a tea and drink it. Tincture, just like we do with echinacea and golden seal. Again, you can do salves, which is ointment for body when you have sprain and all these problems. Beautiful, beautiful instruction. I tell you, it's a piece of gold, that little book. All right. So then we have again more instruction. Wild garlic, another antibiotic. Amazing. Wild garlic. Look at that. And it grows in Canada. I've seen those as well. And it tastes like garlic actually, but it's smaller. And this is for treatment of cold, sinus congestion, earache, stomachache, headache, as well as reducing fever and cough. Miracle. A miracle of the Creator to put that in nature. And it tells you how you can identify it as well. They're small plant and they do smell like garlic, and they produce a beautiful flower, as you can see right here. And again, the garlic is inside the soil. It's a little bulb, a bit like the size of a green onion. All right, but of course it's white. All right, so wild garlic, you can mix it with your salad and it tastes exactly like garlic. It's just that it's wild. In the wilderness, God has created everything we need. Oh, common burdock, I cannot bypass that. Velcro, this is such a beautiful plant, and you can use it for natural remedies, the roots, the flower, the leaves, as well as common burdock plant. These are antibacterial compound that they contains, and they're definitely the leaf, the stem, and the flower. You can use it for poultice, to treat abrasions, cuts, sore, ulcer, insect bites, and snake bites. Good to know. So the root of the burdock contains 50% inulin, which is used for treating diabetes. See, you don't need insulin, you need inulin here from the burdock plant. All right, and we do find them in North America for sure. And how do you identify them? Well, it's a biennial flowering plant, and it grows up to 9 feet. And they have green lower leaves that are shaped similar to those of rhubarb with a solid celery-like stalk. Yeah, this is very easily recognizable. Even when it grows, it looks like it has a rhubarb type of leaf, if you know rhubarb. And this is the flower, very pretty flower. But as you touch it, it can be also pricky, so you have to be careful with your finger. All right, and it can be used for poultice, tisane, tincture. The root can be boiled, prepared as a tisane, which means you can drink it. And the seed also usually crushed and prepared for a poultice. Can you imagine how much you can do with this? And this is a medicine, of course. And you can grow it in the garden if you insist, although I find it grows pretty well everywhere. And that's why some people call them bad weeds, because they do grow everywhere. If you let them grow, you'll have a full edge of them. And so you will have your natural remedies right in your backyard. But some people don't like those. They rather like to have just grass. All right, so echinacea, wonderful echinacea, which comes in different color. Here in this case, it's yellow, but you can also cultivate it in pink, Many people have done something wonderful with echinacea. They have become a flower for decorating the gardens. So specifically the pink one I have seen in gardens, which looks really beautiful. All right, so here it says it can be used for treatment for both spider and snake bites to help alleviate the tissue and nerve damage caused by the poison that these creatures inject. So again, echinacea is a very efficient medicine. And you can find it in Canada, definitely in United States. I have seen it. It grows really well in Canada, even in a cold country area. And there are different types that you can get accustomed to. And I don't think the color makes a difference. I have not studied the difference in color, if it makes a difference for the beautiful plant. This is the leaves of the echinacea, and this is the beautiful flower. I'm sure you have seen it in gardens. Definitely it grows there. You can use it for a poultice as a salve and ingest it internally as a dry powder, a tisane, a tincture, or an extract. I usually use it as a in homeopathy, which is a liquid formula, which is very potent, very efficient. Echinacea is excellent for increasing your immune system. Wild ginger against nausea and vomiting. Look at this, beautiful little leaves. And again, this is a natural remedy that has been used for thousands of years against nausea and vomiting. And it has an acid and an aristolochic acid. And it was used by the Native American tribes against indigestion, cramps, sore throats, cough, cold, and nervous condition. All right. So again, they grow definitely in Canada. I've seen them as well. And in the United States. And you can identify them because they basically stay on the ground. They're very pretty and they produce a beautiful little flower like this. So I'm sure you can recognize them in the stem, a little bit of a airy stem. And you can use them for internally as a juice. And you can also chew the portion of the roots. You can use them as a tincture as well. So they're not dangerous. And you can grow wild ginger in the garden. So again, very important. Wild licorice, this is another wild plant. It's an antacid for stomachache, and that's a natural remedy for sure. And it's an antiviral compound, considered be antiviral, anti-inflammatory, anticonvulsive, anti-allergenic. Very, very, very important. It contains all that. And it's for relieving sore throat, cough, diarrhea, stomachache, earache, and fever in children. You find it in Canada as well, all the way to Texas. Very beautiful plants. So we're going to have to close. These are definitely giving us some taste of what those plants could do. Beautiful flower that they produce and the leaves. This is what we're looking at here with the wild licorice. And you can juice it. You can chew actually on the roots and you'll get your liquid in there. You can use it in a tea, in a tincture, and you can grow it in your garden. So they're giving you a lot of instruction. Cough suppressant or hound, it's another plant that we're going to bypass here quickly, but you can go back at it. The book is available. And we hope that these instructions are of, if nothing else, they'll give you now the desire to go to the forest in the summer and explore all these. This is a beautiful plant. I love this little flower. It looks almost like an orchid when you look at it with a microscope. Such a pretty little flower. And here are the little leaves, and those you can prepare them for as well a tea, a tincture. You can crush it, boil it in water, and you'll get a tincture strain before consumption. All right, and you can grow it in your garden. All of these plants are capable of growing in your garden. All right, so as we have almost done now this study, and we have seen how the Creator has taken care of all of us in giving us so many plants in the forest, we should be actually ashamed that we have not studied it before, but being ashamed doesn't change anything. I think the best is to get at it and be able to study them so that when we need them, We have known them now and we can recognize them. Most of them can be used as simply as a drink. You can just use them as a drink, and you can drink them as a tea. So make sure that you know your plants and how to use them and how to identify them. All right. So there is definitely, again, a production. It gives you the leaves and it gives you the flower. So it's really, really wonderful to study those plants. So thank you for having been with us. It's almost done. They're on 101 page. Poison oak here, rash antihistamine. So it will tell you here that some of them, they're natural remedies. You have to be careful about them and use them properly, but they're definitely important to know. Some of them actually, they can be antidote. You know that one. Such a pretty flower that it produces. And you can eat those flowers actually. And they grow by where there is water. Those are called jewel weed plants, and they are directly to be an antidote for poison ivy. All right, and you can use them as a poultice, or you can just use them by with a liquid, and then you will be able to get rid of that poison ivy itch. All right. So thank you for your attention, and may the Lord bless you and cause his face to shine upon you and give you peace as you continue to study and make sure that you know everything that you need to know in order to be healthy. So, and we're going to go to the next session. It will have to do with natural remedy as well. So lots and lots and lots of things to learn and recognize in God's wonderful nature.